Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us. I'm Adam Weinberg, the Alice Pratt Brown Director of the Whitney Museum. I am thrilled that you're able to join us today as we present our next exciting round of spring exhibitions. It has been a great pleasure to see many of you at the museum over the past few weeks since the opening of our critically acclaimed painting survey by artist Julie Meritou. Today, we invite you to return to the Whitney as we take a first look at Dawoud Bey, an American project, and look ahead to the debut next month of Dave McKenzie, The Story I Tell Myself. Dawoud Bey and Dave McKenzie are here with us today, and a little later in this program, we will have the opportunity to listen in as the artists discuss their work that is featured in these exhibitions. The Whitney is privileged to present the first solo museum exhibition in New York City by multidisciplinary artist Dave McKenzie. McKenzie's new performance, Disturbing the View, draws inspiration from the entrepreneurial window washers prevalent in many American cities. In this brand new performance work commissioned by the Whitney, McKenzie will choreograph a circuitous path around the museum building with its enormous windows and glass facades. As he progressively covers and wipes clean this window surfaces, he will in effect simultaneously insert himself into the museum's daily rhythms, disrupting expected views and prompting observers to consider labor that is often invisible, yet essential. This performance is accompanied by The Story I Tell Myself, a focused exhibition on the museum's third-floor Hess Gallery featuring video and documentation of McKenzie's past performances, alongside works from the Whitney collection by artists who have informed concepts, sensibilities, and gestures in his work. McKenzie both references and responds to these artists, including Trisha Brown, Chris Burden, Felix Gonzalez-Torres, Gordon Matta Clark, Bruce Nauman, and Pope L. Together, the live performances of Disturbing the View and the installation in the Hess Gallery represent 20 years of McKenzie's creative output and reflect poetic, provocative, subversive, and touching, his art that variously take form of performances, videos, installations, objects, and public projects, and addresses themes such as the body, forms of social interaction, and the wonder of daily existence. As McKenzie has written, I am not an artist who is concerned with defining and subdefining my practice, but I am someone who desperately wants to produce new situations that may become models for myself or others. I often try to do this through the most economical of means, producing an economy of form that hopefully allows the work to feel familiar, and at the same time, the slight formal differences allow for the generation of new areas for discussion and consideration. As always, I hope the work is not a simple reiteration of what is known, but that it can be used and understood to be an argument for why we think we know at all. This exhibition and performance commission is organized by the brilliant, daring, and perspicacious Adrienne Edwards, the Engell Speyer family curator and director of curatorial affairs, with Mia Mathias, her marvelous curatorial assistant. I also want to thank the Manitou Fund for their enthusiastic and open-hearted support of Dave McKenzie, The Story I Tell Myself. We're also tremendously grateful to the Jacques and Natasha Gelman Foundation, which supports adventurous, risk-taking endeavors through their outside-the-box endowment fund at the Whitney. Above all, my sincere thanks to Dave McKenzie for his art, who makes us reconsider what we do and why we do it, and for entrusting the Whitney with the presentation of his genre-bending work and this new commission. Tomorrow, the Whitney Museum is exceptionally proud to open Dawoud Bey, an American project. It can be argued that the sum of a museum's exhibition program may also be seen as its self-portrait, because what a museum displays and collects demonstrates how it sees itself. In the last 25 years, Bey's work have appeared in 10 Whitney exhibitions, including 2 biennials, and we're fortunate to count a number of his works from different series among our holdings. Since the beginning of his career in the 1970s, Bey has used his camera to visualize communities and histories that have been largely unrepresented or unseen in American media and culture. Born and raised in New York City and now living in Chicago for over 20 years, Bey's practice is grounded in the traditions of photographers such as James Van Der Zee, Roy DeCarava, Richard Avedon, Irving Penn, Walker Evans, and the members of the Camoinge Workshop, whose exhibition just recently closed at the Whitney. Bey's deep commitment to the craft of photography and to the processes, materials, and histories of the medium has helped to expand our understanding of what photography is and can be. This retrospective traces trajectories across the major series of images throughout the artist's 45-year career, from his earliest body of work spanning the late 1970s, Harlem, USA, through his most recent project, Night Coming Tenderly Black. Bey often intervenes in systems of circulation and display by collaborating and working critically with museums and schools through residency and part of his own practice as a teacher. By insisting that photography is an ethical act that requires exchange or a participatory process with his subjects, Bey has forged a path that prods institutions to break down obstacles to access, to convene communities, and to open frank and honest dialogues. The Whitney is particularly pleased to co-organize this retrospective with the San Francisco Museum of Modern Art. My great gratitude goes to my colleague Neil Ben Ezra and his colleagues at SF MoMA for partnering with us on this endeavor. I also want to offer my heartfelt thanks to SF MoMA's curator Corey Keller and the Whitney's Elisabeth Sherman, co-curators of this undertaking, for creating an essential exhibition for our time and a timely exhibition for the reopening of New York as it emerges from the COVID pandemic. Elisabeth has, over several years, given this endeavor her all, her sensitive heart, her keen mind, and her clear vision. We would like to extend our deep appreciation to the foundations, corporations, and individual donors who supported Dawoud Bey. We're especially grateful to the Bank of America for being the lead sponsor of the exhibition here in New York. Time and again, Bank of America has been there for the Whitney and many other cultural institutions, but never more importantly than now. Generous support is also provided by the Andy Warhol Foundation for the Visual Arts. The Andy Warhol Foundation doesn't miss an opportunity to fund exhibitions that they believe are indispensable. Significant support was provided by the Philip and Edith Leonian Foundation and the National Endowment for the Arts. Dawoud famously said, "Black people have been killed for directing their gaze at the wrong person. I want my subjects to reclaim their right to look, to see, and be seen. Thank you, Dawoud, for your courage, for encouraging all of us to look more deeply, and for helping the Whitney to see itself and its role anew and more clearly. It has been a privilege to collaborate with you and host this magnificent survey."
Good afternoon. My name is Elisabeth Sherman, and I'm an assistant curator here at the Whitney Museum. We're thrilled to welcome you here today on the occasion of the opening of Dawoud Bey, an American Project. Many thanks to everyone joining us, and I would also like to reiterate Adam and Scott's thanks to Corey Keller and our colleagues at SF MoMA for partnering with us on this important exhibition. Welcome, Dawoud.
Well, thank you. I'm happy to be here with you.
It's an honor to have over 4 decades of your work here in our galleries. The exhibition begins with 2 bodies of work. Your very first series, Harlem, USA, which is shown on the title wall of our 8th floor galleries. The work is flanked on both sides by your second Harlem series, made 40 years later, Harlem Redux. It feels especially poignant to welcome New Yorkers into the gallery with photographs made here in the city. How does it feel to reunite these images in New York City and to have them introduce your retrospective here at the Whitney?
Well, I think it's a very interesting way to introduce the work, rather than starting with the past and working one's way forward into the work, to begin closer to the present moment, which of course is informed by the past, and to bring those particular 2 groups of works made in Harlem, to bring them into a conversation. I think it's a very unique opportunity for the viewer, certainly, to get a sense of how an artist's work evolves around a particular place, in this case, Harlem.
And what about bringing them back here to New York City where they were made?
Well, I'm from New York, and I've spent certainly a lot of time in New York, even since leaving New York. And I think the Harlem Redux photographs engage an idea that is very much of this moment in New York, the transformation of the city and the transformation of Harlem in particular through the influx of global capital and the forces of gentrification that are at work in this city and certainly in Harlem and other communities in New York. So I think it's a very wonderful bringing together of the work and situating it in a place, that is not too far from the place from which the work is derived. For me, it's a wonderful opportunity because Harlem Redux, as much as it's about a set of circumstances that have to do very much with New York, this is in fact the first time that work is being shown in New York. So it's an exciting opportunity for me, especially because most people, when they think about Harlem and my work, they think about the Harlem USA work, which is my formative work. But introducing them through the present and then working one's way into the past, I think it's a wonderful conceptual and curatorial gesture.
Where and for whom your work is presented is an important consideration in your practice. Can you speak to this element of your work and why its presentation is so essential?
Well, I think from the outset, when I made the photographs in Harlem in the 70s, I wanted to have that work first shown in a space in the community where the work had been made. This whole idea of looking at the exhibition site as something more than a benign space for exhibiting work started actually when I was very young, when I went to see Harlem on My Mind at the Metropolitan Museum of Art. And there were protests mounted around that exhibition for a number of reasons, one of which was the fact that the work was about a particular community, and that community did not have immediate or ready access to the work that purported to be about them. So that was something that even before I had really started seriously making photographs, gave me a sense that the museum space was not a benign space, that there was some, and could be, some intentional relationship between the exhibiting of the work and exhibiting that work in a very particular location, and having the narrative of both of them attach themselves to the work. So it started with the Harlem USA work, and then continued when I first started the street portrait works. The first community I photographed in was Brooklyn. And I had, at that point, I called them the Brooklyn Street Portraits. And I had an exhibition of that work in the Baca Downtown Center for the Arts in Brooklyn, because I wanted the work about a place to be presented in the place where it was made. The idea that one could collapse the audience and the subject into a single thing, that the work did not have to be made in one place and then shown in another, that was very different from the place in which the work was made, even if that was, as it was, going to happen. Initially, I always thought it was very important that the work be shown in the space in which the work had been made. So that idea continued with Night Coming Tenderly Black. And as you said, it was shown in St. John's Episcopal Church, which was the last stop on the Underground Railroad in northeastern Cleveland as fugitive African Americans made their way to Lake Erie. So this idea of exhibiting the work about that narrative in a place that was literally about that particular narrative. You know, that the past and the present, and that this narrative of the contemporary and the past could be brought together in a kind of dynamic kind of dialogue and conversation, is something that has continued. The Birmingham work was initially exhibited in the Birmingham Museum of Art 50 years to the day of the dynamiting of the 16th Street Baptist Church, which that work comes out of. So not only did I want to show it in that community, but to exhibit the work in a place that was at one time a part of Birmingham social history.
Thank you so much, Dawoud, for joining us today.
And thank you for the opportunity to have this conversation. And thank you also for bringing the exhibition here and doing such an extraordinary job in helping to present it in my hometown.
It's been a true honor.
As Adam highlighted, we are thrilled to present Dave McKenzie's first solo museum exhibition in New York City and debut the artist's new Whitney Commission performance. The ambitious two-part endeavor will open to the public on May 1st. The exhibition, Dave McKenzie, The Story I Tell Myself, runs parallel to Disturbing the View, the commission performance, in which McKenzie uses the museum's facade as a canvas for a choreographed disruption of the institution's daily rhythms. Dave is as multifaceted as his art. Together, the performance and exhibition span 20 years of his creative output and reflect key themes in his art: endurance, exhaustion, repetition, and humor. Illuminating the seriousness of play and art making, Dave engages with and questions ideas, images, and language using his principal tool, his own body. Having worked with Dave over the years, it is gratifying to consider his work over this 2-decade period alongside artworks from our permanent collection to reveal its depth and variety in performance, as well as to suggest their striking relationship to and deep influence on Dave, a singular figure in experimental performance today. We are honored to juxtapose his work with those of Trisha Brown, Chris Burden, Felix Gonzalez-Torres, Gordon Matta-Clark, Bruce Nauman, and Popel, to draw attention to these artists' shared awareness of a voyeuristic audience, incorporation of architecture, sense of risk, and emphasis on public intervention. Disturbing the View will take place from May 1st to June 13th on Fridays and Saturdays during museum hours, beginning at 1 p.m. We hope you will be able to catch the performance in person and spend time exploring the installation, The Story I Tell Myself. It's now my pleasure to introduce Dave McKenzie, who is joining us today to say a few words about the Exhibition and Performance Commission.
I want to start by thanking the Whitney and Adrienne Edwards in particular for the opportunity to think publicly. Performance is something that I like to say that I sort of fell into largely at the library of my college, and performance has been a way for me to really think about where my body fits into the world. The work that I'm doing at the Whitney, Disturbing the View, is for me really a conversation between my body, the body of any visitor, the architecture, the institutions in general, and really sort of the state of affairs of the world. So I am thinking a lot about what it means to be visible to another and what that disturbance of our bodies in relationship to not only visibility, but what it means essentially for us to actually encounter one another and how difficult that can be given the fact that we often prioritize other things for ourselves at any moment in particular. The work comes for me out of this image that I have around the squeegee men, primarily the squeegee men of New York. And I took that idea of the squeegee men and the way that they sort of break the view, or for me, disturb the view, and all the ways that their bodies and the body of another, whether it's through race or class or just the simple action of being available to one another visually, how difficult that can be for so many of us at any moment in time.
On May 17th, the Whitney looks forward to celebrating the completion of the installation of a permanent public art project by New York-based artist David Hammonds. Located in Hudson River Park along the southern edge of Gansevoort Peninsula, directly across from the museum, Hammond's Day's End derives its inspiration and name from Gordon Matta Clark's 1975 artwork, in which he cut 5 openings into the Pier 52 shed. An open structure that precisely follows the outline, dimensions, and location of the original Pier 52 structure, Hammond's Day's End is a ghost monument to the earlier work by Matta Clark and alludes to the history of New York's waterfront, from the original piers of the 19th and 20th century that stood along the Hudson River during the heyday of New York's shipping industry, to the reclaimed piers that became an important gathering place for a gay community. Though Hammonds imagined this public artwork before the current pandemic crisis, its message is even more resonant today. An ode to memory, loss, and yearning, its open form alludes to the history of the site, asks us to consider the passage of time, and celebrates New York's creativity and resilience. It also stands as a testament to the Whitney's commitment to community, open dialogue, and civic good. We're deeply grateful for the support Day's End has already received from the city as well as our neighbors. Open to everyone, Hammond's Day's End is designed to coexist with Hudson River Trust's planned park at Gansevoort Peninsula and to bring visitors down to the water's edge. The project was developed in collaboration with the Hudson River Park Trust, and we're extremely grateful to the Trust for collaborating with us. The Whitney, the Trust, and Hammonds are committed to ensuring that the artwork becomes an integral part of the local area and waterfront fabric, as were the working piers that preceded it. We are profoundly grateful to the many donors, government, foundation, individual, and corporate, that have supported this 6-year undertaking, who, along with David Hammonds, have made this work a gift to New York City that will endure for generations. We greatly anticipate the unveiling of this historic, monumental public artwork next month.
Good afternoon. My name is Jane Panetta. I'm curator and director of the collection for the Whitney Museum. The Whitney's collection includes over 26,000 works created by approximately 3,500 artists from the 20th and 21st centuries. Our focus on contemporary artists, along with a deep respect for their creative process and vision, has guided the museum's collecting since its founding in 1930. The Whitney continues to build an ambitious and inclusive collection, demonstrating the museum's commitment to offering a diverse and compelling narrative of American art, one that includes the work by artists of all backgrounds and across generations, aesthetic styles, and media. I'm pleased to share a new installation on the Whitney's 5th floor terrace overlooking the High Line, where we've displayed recent acquisitions to the collection by artists Carol Bovay and Virginia Overton. These 3 large-scale sculptures offer an exciting view into the work of these artists, and together suggest the ways in which these 2 important sculptors are reimagining the formal and narrative possibilities for abstract, large-scale sculptures, particularly through the use of industrial and found materials. Carol Bovay, who first exhibited at the Whitney in 2008 in the biennial, is best known for our assemblage sculptures that combine found and fabricated elements, routinely incorporating a range of domestic, industrial, and natural objects. 2 of Bovay's large-scale collage sculptures, the bicycle and Will's dog, are currently on view as part of the terrace installation. Will's dog is a generous loan through the artist and David Zwirner Gallery. To create these large-scale works, such as the bicycle, Bovay combines different types of steel, yielding compositions that are either fully or partially painted with a palette of bright colors. In this case, evocative of Willem de Kooning's painting Woman and Bicycle from the early 1950s, a work also part of the Whitney's collection. This installation also features a recent acquisition by Virginia Overton, who previously activated this very space in 2016 with her exhibition Sculpture Gardens, curated by Chief Curator Scott Rothkopf and Assistant Curator Laura Phipps. Here, she returns to the terrace with Untitled Hilux, a monumental work she created in 2016. In this work, Overton dismantled a pickup truck and reconfigured its parts in the bed of the truck to create a carefully balanced assemblage. The sculpture pile, in which the truck parts themselves become useless, is set on a plinth and instead assumes a new role as monument. Part of a series of truck-based works by Overton, her incorporation of these elements into her assemblage sculpture reflects on both our urban surroundings and the changing face of American car culture. Overton's work can also be seen in Nothing Is So Humble, Prints from Everyday Objects, curated by Kim Conatee, Stephen and Ann Ames, Curator of Drawings and Prints, currently on view in the museum's third-floor gallery and through April 18th. This focused exhibition, drawn from the Whitney's collection, looks at the creative and irreverent ways that 7 artists, Ruth Asawa, Sari Deans, Patty Hill, Khalil Robert Irving, Virginia Overton, Julia Phillips, and Zarina, have employed everyday objects around them to make prints. We continue to also be inspired by the works on view in Making Knowing, Craft and Art 1950 to 2019, an exhibition curated by Assistant Curators Jenny Goldstein and Elisabeth Sherman that beautifully foregrounds how visual artists have explored the materials, methods, and strategies of craft over the past 7 decades. Making Knowing is on view in the museum's 6th-floor galleries through February 2022, and we hope you'll visit if you haven't already. I hope you will also spend some time viewing our ongoing installation, The Whitney's Collection, Selections from 1900 to 1965, where I'm speaking from currently. Featuring more than 120 works drawn entirely from the Whitney's collection and inspired by the founding history of the museum, the exhibition begins with a gallery dedicated to selections from the museum's founding collection, followed by galleries that weave their way through major art historical movements and genres. The exhibition is organized by David Breslin, DeMartini Family Curator and Director of Curatorial Initiatives, with Margaret Cross, Senior Curatorial Assistant, and Roxanne Smith, Curatorial Assistant, and is on view in the museum's 7th-floor galleries through 2022. The Whitney's collection is a dynamic cultural resource that allows us to continually reframe the history of American life and artistic production. I hope that during your next visit to the museum, you will take a moment to explore all that it has to offer. And thanks so much.
Hello, everyone. I'm Scott Rothkopf, the Whitney Senior Deputy Director and Nancy and Steve Crown Family Chief Curator. And it's been a pleasure to have you all join us today to celebrate the opening of Dawoud Bey's show this week and to look ahead to Dave McKenzie's exhibition and performances next month. I'm grateful that we've been able to take a brief moment to share more with all of you also about our current collection installations. As you know, concurrently on view is artist Julie Meritu's monumental mid-career survey, which opened on March 25th in our 5th-floor Neil Bloom Family Galleries. The exhibition unites more than 70 of Meritu's paintings and work on paper dating from 1996 to the present, reflecting the breadth of the artist's extraordinary career. The installation is truly magnificent and something that can only be appreciated in person, so I hope you'll come to the museum if you haven't seen it already. While we're gathered here virtually, I'd like to take a moment, as I always do, to speak a little bit about what else is in store in the coming months and the year ahead at the Whitney. As Adam noted, we're very much looking forward to the completion of David Hammonds's Day's End next month on the Gansevoort Peninsula, and we hope you'll join us to be a part of the opening events. Being able to share a project of this significance by an artist of such influence is a rare honor. So it's truly unprecedented that we'll also be presenting the work of Jasper Johns in the same calendar year. I have to keep pinching myself to think about when I think about how we have 2 icons of American art side by side in our program. Jasper Johns' Mind Mirror, the artist's much anticipated retrospective, will open in September on the same day in New York and in Philadelphia at the Philadelphia Museum of Art. The exhibition will be staged simultaneously across these 2 museums in a pioneering format that allows us to present a wide range of Johns' work across time, theme, and artistic method. Then, in October, our performance program will continue, hopefully in person, with a survey of the artist trio My Barbarian, organized by Adrienne Edwards. Marking the group's 20th anniversary year, the survey will be divided into 2 parts. One part will consist of a series of live performances, including a play, festival, cabaret-style concert, and a rehearsal as performance, which reimagine iconic shows that represent the trio's various theatrical styles. These will be joined by an exhibition in our lobby gallery that brings together video performances, documentary footage, and elements from the group's archive to trace My Barbarian's history. For the second part of the survey, we've commissioned a performance for the camera titled Rose Bird, created in homage to the first female Chief Justice of the California Supreme Court. Then, a little after My Barbarian, as we announced last month, we'll open an exhibition of Jennifer Packer's work, The Eye is Not Satisfied with Seeing. This show originated at the London Serpentine Gallery, and the Whitney's presentation is organized by our assistant curator, Ruheko Hockley, who also curated Julie's show. Featuring 34 works dated from 2011 to 2020, the exhibition is the largest survey of Packer's practice to date and will include a range of works from portraits of the artist's New York circle to intimate interiors and flower still lifes. I have to say that Jennifer's work is truly powerful emotionally and something that I connect to in many ways, and I'm sure all of you will too. Her exhibition directly follows an American project, Dawoud's show, and our 8th floor Hearst Family Galleries, and we're honored to continue our relationship with both Jennifer and Dawoud, who are biennial alums. On that note, I'm thrilled that we will open our next biennial in April of 2022, a year late but worth the wait, on the heels of our Jasper Johns show. And we look forward to sharing more about our Hallmark exhibition and the work of the 2022 curatorial team, Adrienne Edwards, David Breslin, our DiMartini family curator and director of curatorial initiatives, and Margaret Cross, senior curatorial assistant. Thank you again for joining us this afternoon to share in the work of these incredible artists. We hope you'll make a trip to the Whitney soon to see their exhibitions in person, and please do stay tuned for updates on our exciting year ahead. Thank you.